Hey folks, it's Bully from Bully's Painting Parlour. Sorry about having to stop the last part quickly there. My wife needed something from me. So we're going to roll straight back into lesson 4 part 3. I'm going to be adding a fantasy colour which we know is going to be a bit thinner again, and this is Moonray Flesh, and this is the last layer of lights that I'm going to use in my pre-shading before I start hitting up the whites. Okay, so I have cleaned it through. Just added this tiny bit of colour in, and then I'm going to give it a good mix up so we get the right consistency. And again, I want a thin paint. This is very thin. I'll draw some across my hand because I've not done that for a vid or two. So you can see on my hand, again, it's very thin. And this is because we call them these translucents. This is because I am wanting the colours beneath to have an influence over the colours on top. So let's just kick the airbrush compressor in, and the first thing we'll remember is I jacked it right up so I could dry the model, so I'm going to have to turn it right down again, and we're going to be turning it down to comfortably around 20 for this colour, I think. And let's just do the old check on the hand. Okay, that's a nice even colour on my hand, but it requires me to be quite precise with the trigger pressure. If I let that slip, that would spider on my hand. So I've just turned the pressure down a tiny little bit more via the compressor, and I am gonna bleed all over the place. Brilliant. Gonna just flip the model over, and I'm going to start working in specifically the lights now. So we're going to come in from high, and you'll see this colour. Hopefully you can actually see me painting. You can. This colour is much lighter than the pinks, and I'm going to be following this right down. And I'm going to be working it all over. I'm going to turn the model on its side, and again I'm only working from the upside now. And we're going to cut in the face, but only the upper section, and then we're going to cut in the bend, but not all of it, and then I'm going to roll it so I can just see the underbelly, which is obviously much darker on this side, and from above I'm just going to feather that colour in, and I'm going to be careful that I hit the jaw and the snout. And the reason is I don't want to have too much of a transition between light and dark at this stage, because this is obviously still pre-shades. But we are starting to be left with the colour I want showing through on the underside of Gorfang's belly, which is going to be a much lighter colour. Now, a much darker colour, I'm just going to hit in and soften up some of the shade here on the underside, because I'm conscious that at this point it's a bit heavier still than I think I wanted it to be. So the good thing about doing it as you go along is we can just pick that up. Obviously me having the alcohol shakes helps a great amount when I'm doing this sort of precision painting, but that's fine. Okay, so we've now got what looks a lot more like a white worm, I guess. But if I roll the thing through the light, you can see quite a heavy transition, and I know my camera is crap and the light in here is crap, and I'm sorry for that, but it should give you at least an idea to hear what I'm talking about. Okay, so instead of washing the airbrush now, I am going to specifically just start to shade up. So I'm going to take my Vallejo Model Air White, and I'm going to add about half and half with the colour that was existing in the paint pot still. I'm going to give it a stir. Now it's an airbrush paint, as you know, so it should be thin enough already, and there was already thinner in the particular paint before, and it was a bit thin, so hopefully I should be able to get away without adding some thinner to it, but you can see it's a lot more opaque now. Now we're going to begin the process of turning Gorfang's head white. So we're going to turn it upside down. Let's just just check the colour. The first thing you want to do is blow through. In fact, that's too thick. So just going to jack the pressure up a little bit because I'm feeling some resistance. In fact, I don't need to, but I can actually show you another life hack while we're doing this. If you're meeting resistance on your paint and your airbrush is clogging, simply unscrew the back section a little bit, pull the needle out just a small way and push it through, and that will push any gunk that's collected in the needle housing of the nozzle through. And then obviously before you paint, you want to give it a good black through, and then actually that's released. I've increased the pressure as well, but there's a lot more paint coverage now, but it's nice and flat look. Okay, so we are going to work in the lights, and this time we're going to do striation painting. So I'm going to follow the curve of the head. And then on this side I'm going to do the same. Okay, so we've now got, see if I can stop the compressor and actually bring in the video a bit closer into a backdrop where you might be able to see. So what you can see now is a transition from light at the top, rolling through several different shades to the underbelly frills, and that's the base of the coat I want for the underbelly frills. Underneath the neck you can see that there's a transitional pink, and it rolls around into deeper shadow. I know that the iPhone is really not doing me any justice in terms of demonstrating this, but in real life there's quite a lot of transition between this. But more importantly, as you can see, it's very, very smooth, and that's the challenge with white, as we all know. Okay, so I'm almost finished with lesson 4, which is putting the colours down. And the last thing I'm going to do on lesson 4 is put some pure white on. So I'm just going to chuck out that bit of half and half mix I had. Clean my airbrush out the quick way. Obviously I'm getting to the point where I'm going to be finishing for the day now and taking my kids out for a meal before Poppy goes into hospital again next week. Boo-hoo, nightmare. So we've cleaned out the airbrush, I've dried it all off, it's all ready to go, and now I'm going to hit in straight away with pure white. Now again, this is an airbrush ready paint, but an airbrush ready paint doesn't mean anything nowadays. So I'm going to add some thinner to it to avoid it being chalky and powdery. Again, it's only a very small amount of thinner, and the paint is going to be thin because you're adding thinner to a paint that's supposed to, in theory, be airbrush ready. And on a pure white, you're looking at this kind of single cream consistency, but it's still got good coverage. You can see the pigment coverage there is strong. Right then, let's just do the old hand check, and we'll do it on a flat bit of hand up here, and we'll see if the pressure versus the paint is right. And you can see it's spidering, so we know it's not. So we're going to turn the pressure down to, I don't know, 18. Let's try again. I'm a bit of fresh skin. No spidering, no powdering. Perfect. We're going to take Gorfang, and again we're going to hit the lights in, but this time we're going to focus on specific light spots. So we're going to hit the neck, we're going to hit the top of the head and around the face. We're going to hit just the crack in the neck there, and on this side we're going to hit just the top of it and straight across the face, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do with this level of white. I'm going to be putting some more whites back into it later, but the first thing we're going to start doing in the next set of lessons is shading it with reds. Okay, so here ends the lesson. I hope you've enjoyed this series from today. and I will come back in just a minute with the first part of lesson 5, where I show you how to clean this airbrush.